You know, the United Nations, it feels like it's always been there, right? A permanent fixture of our world. But it wasn't. It was this incredibly bold idea, forged in the fires of a world war, all to answer one single desperate question. How do we make sure this never happens again?
Okay, so to really understand the UN, you gotta know this one key thing. It wasn't the world's first shot at global peace. Nope, it was actually the second attempt, an organization born directly from the ashes of the first one's failure.
Right, so to get the UN, we have to rewind a bit and look at its predecessor, the League of Nations. I mean, it was a really noble idea, for sure, but ultimately, it was just powerless to stop the world from plunging right back into absolute chaos.
I mean, think about it. After the sheer devastation of World War I, the League of Nations was a genuinely revolutionary idea. The concept was simple but so powerful. Let's create a global forum where we can talk things out and prevent a catastrophe like that from ever happening again.
But there were some huge, fatal flaws right from the start. For one, some of the world's biggest players, like the United States, never even joined. And with no real army, no way to enforce its decisions, it was basically helpless when aggression ramped up in the 1930s. It just kind of faded into history, right as its successor was being created.
Okay, now this is where the story gets really interesting. The plan for a new, stronger global organization, it wasn't something they saved for peacetime. No way. The blueprint was actually drawn up right in the middle of World War II. Leaders were already saying, we are not making the same mistakes again.
And listen, this was no rushed job. It was a deliberate, step-by-step process. It started way back in 1941 with the Atlantic Charter, which was basically a vision for the post-war world. From there, it grew into a formal declaration, then a really detailed blueprint at a conference called Dumbarton Oaks, until finally, the big three, Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin, hammered out the last crucial details at Yalta in 1945.
And here's a fun fact for you. The name United Nations, it wasn't originally for a peacetime organization, not at all. It was the actual official name for the 26 allied nations who were fighting the war together. It was a term that united them in a common cause, years before the final charter was even a thing. Pretty cool, right?
So, as the war was finally winding down, the Allies moved fast. It was time to take this wartime vision, this alliance, and turn it into a real, functioning, permanent institution for the whole world.
So get this. In April of 1945, the war in Europe was just ending, but it was still raging in the Pacific. Delegates from 50 countries all met in San Francisco. They had one single, incredibly audacious goal: to write the Constitution for a new world order. For 2 solid months, they debated, they argued, they drafted, and the result was the UN Charter. And you've got to understand, this wasn't just another treaty. It was, for all intents and purposes, the Constitution of the United Nations. It laid out everything: its purpose, its structure, and its most fundamental principles, like peace and human dignity.
But hey, just signing the document on June 26th, that was only step one. To actually bring the UN to life, to flip the switch and turn it on, the charter had to be ratified. That's just a fancy way of saying it needed to be legally approved by the home governments of its most important members.
And that final hurdle? It was cleared on October 24th, 1945. That's the day the UN officially came into being. It happened only after the charter was ratified by 5 key nations, the ones who would become the permanent members of the Security Council, plus a majority of the other countries. This was absolutely crucial because it made sure the world's biggest powers were all in from day one.
And just like that, the United Nations was born. It kicked off a mission of global cooperation that has grown and changed in ways its founders probably couldn't have even imagined over the last 80-plus years.
And the growth has been just incredible. Think about it. From just 51 founding members back in 1945, the UN now has 193 member states. It's become a truly global, almost universal organization.
Its core mission, the one they wrote down in the charter all those years ago, it's just as relevant today. At its heart, it's about one thing: tackling the huge problems that no single country, no matter how powerful, can possibly solve alone.
And you see that mission playing out in so many different ways, right? I'm talking about peacekeepers in conflict zones, delivering humanitarian aid after a disaster, and doing the constant, really difficult work of promoting human rights and trying to coordinate global action on massive challenges like climate change. It's also really important to remember this. The UN was never meant to be some static relic, frozen in 1945. The Charter was actually designed to be adaptable.
It's been amended 3 times to evolve as the world changes, like when they expanded the Security Council, for instance.
So there's no doubt the UN was a radical and absolutely necessary solution for the world of 1945. But that leaves us with a really big question for today, doesn't it? Is the institution that was built for that post-war world, is it still equipped to handle the completely new, complex challenges of the 21st century and whatever comes next? That's really something to think about.